I have the responsibility of introducing the moderator of the day. He is a man of many shades.
Sir, no sound.
You are mute. Percy, you are mute.
Good evening, everyone in Asia, and very good morning to my colleagues in North America. I am Parasu Nepal, the founder and the managing director of International Development Institute. Today, I have the responsibility of introducing the moderator of the day. He is the man of many shades. He has contributed to take the IDI to a whole new level after joining the organization in 2014. He played an indispensable role to make this program that you all are attending possible. If I read his full bio, it will take more than 30 minutes, which I will not do. I will just summarize a few things that must be mentioned here. He has worked in health, finance, and international development for over 30 years. His global experience include working in North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. His areas of interest has been innovation, entrepreneurship, youth engagement, mentoring, diaspora, tourism, education development, and all that. And he has published policy papers on these issues. He has developed numerous programs in Nepal, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and all that. He studied at Jawaharlal Nehru University, a premier university in India. Additionally, he had studied at the University of Pennsylvania here in the US. He has authored a book and edited a number of magazines and published a number of articles. He is also a Fulbright scholar. He serves at a board of a number of nonprofit and community organizations here in the US. And he is also a diversity chair of public school system here in Virginia. Besides, he is a co-chair of Asian Leadership Network at Bank of America, and he is a board member of a temple, Durga temple here. He lives in Virginia with his 2 kids and wife. This is a very, I had difficulty in shortening his bio. You are in good hands for the day and the rest of the week. Suman, take it away, all yours.
Thanks, Parshu. It's thanks for introducing me. And even though we're together for last 2 days, this is the 3rd day. I just want to go quickly over the same household, same daily stuff, some administrative stuff. So please, we got lots of feedback from last night. We still don't have 100% evaluation. So we would like to have close to 100%. So if you haven't finished, please do it tonight before you go to bed. And then we have sent some training material. Today's session is going to be long. For last 2 days, we got focused on the leadership and from policy perspectives. And even in Singapore study was like, how they really focus and why Singapore is what it is today. And today and tomorrow, we're going to focus on the schools. And I hope you can hear me, am I right? So today and tomorrow, we're going to focus mostly on schools, how the school is managed in Singapore case. And we have wonderful principals. They're going to share their experience. And we have divided sessions into 2 different sessions. for next for 2 days. And I really appreciate you, even though we thought it's going to be an hour and a half, but it's really hard to condense the whole day program into hour and a half. So thanks for staying a little extra with us. I know it's very late, and that was one of the feedback, but I really appreciate. And the other feedback that we are not really able to adjust 100% is modality of asking questions, whether we allow people to ask questions verbally or just take a chat. So what we're going to do today is in between our presenter, she will pause for maybe 2 or 3 questions, and then we'll move on and we'll take most of the questions at the end. But please send it in the chat if you want. But some people, sometimes they feel chat is kind of disrupting their learning. And so let's be just sensitive about what we're sending in chat, how much we're going to put in the chat so it doesn't disturb, doesn't pop up on the screen. And without further delay, I'll just introduce briefly the presenter for today, Ms. Tan Bin-Eng. She's a former school principal and holds master's degree in educational management. She led one of her schools to achieve the School Distinction Award. She was awarded the Most Outstanding Science Teacher Award in 1998 and received Ruth Wong Medal in NIE'S Leader in Education Program in 2003. She had been principal to 2 different schools, and upon her retirement in 2016, Ministry of Education mentioned her as a strong people developer who has mentored principals, groomed many key personnel, developed teachers through a structured and developmental approach. She enables teachers to engage in professional discussions. So she is going to take it from here, and she's going to share the today's topic. And without further delay, Bin-Eng, you are here. It's all yours.
Thank you.
If there's anything you can add it, thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to go and share screen first. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'm very happy to hear the sharing by the participants from the 2 countries, and I think I also have a lot to learn from you all. So I do hope that my sharing will benefit you. Now, as you know that I was the head of department for mathematics for 13 years. So even when I became a principal, I was still very, very passionate about teaching and learning. So let me share with you about the 2 schools that I have led. The first one is Tampines Primary School. I was there for 7 years, and it's a public school, right? And the second school that I led was this St. Andrew's Junior School. It's a government-aided school. It's still a public school, but it's just that it's government-aided. And then I retired in January 2017. So I will be sharing my experiences in leading innovations in curriculum and teaching and learning in the 2 schools. So this is my agenda. Now I have read your learning expectations, what you want to know. I hope I can meet your expectations because they are really quite varied. Yes, last night we have learned the theories of leadership, such as adaptive leadership and all that. And I know that you all have gone through lots of training, you have lots of knowledge about leadership. So I hope to value add to some of your learning by sharing with you how I put some of these theories into practice, the actions that I have taken. They are great examples of my leadership journey, the agenda that I've spelled out. So this is my first time conducting sharing via Zoom. So it can be challenging for me because I can't engage you face to face. I can't check on your understanding, or it's a bit challenging for me. So to help me better manage time and hopefully maximize your learning. So you can write down your questions while you listen, but I will have I will pause in the middle of my sharing where you can have we have a short Q&A, because I do have quite a lot of things that I thought I would like to share. So I will start first briefly by setting the context for my sharing in relation to implementing some of the MOE. MOE means Ministry of Education initiatives. And then after that, I will move on to talking about 2, 3, and 4. Now, those things that I've shared, though it happened years ago, but I think it is still relevant because they are anchored on the fundamentals of education and leadership. Sorry, I couldn't. Sorry, I can't go down to the next slide. I can't go to the next slide.
I can run the slides. You want me to run it?
Sorry?
I can switch your slides. You want me to do it?
I couldn't go to the next slide. I can
run the slide. Okay, hold on.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Let me check and see. Okay, now I can. So I will start by looking at setting the context of the changing educational landscape. So the context of my sharing was also mentioned by Professor Kopi on the first night. It was the phase 3 of our educational development in Singapore from 1997 to the present. So before 1997, we were very focused about academic excellence, really very focused on academic excellence. Then in 1997, our last former Prime Minister, Mr. Goh Chok Tong, he came on and talked about our MOE vision, which is Thinking School, Learning Nation. And that shifted our focus from academic excellence to enhancing students' thinking. Then we had the first ICT Master Plan, and then after that, we have another 3 more master plan. So in year 2006, our current Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, advocated the use of pedagogy to enhance students' learning. And that's where we talk about TLLM. So I'll be using all these acronyms. TLLM stands for Teach Less, Learn More. And then we move on to talk about the 21st century competencies, realizing TSLN vision, and then we brought in the ICT, and I will also be touching a little bit about learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as I shared how I led innovation, curriculum, teaching and learning in both the schools, you will notice that actually I used 2 different leadership approaches. And in the first school, I'm more top-down because that was in the early 20s. And there were not many examples of innovations in curriculum, teaching and learning at that time. So therefore, teachers were not so exposed to them. And I had to role model more and started working with small groups. But the approach in the second school, after 7 years, I think we have moved on quite a lot, was very different. It was more ground out. So while I share my leadership journey leading the TLM initiative in the first school, I will cover all these that is stated in number 2 of this agenda. So I like by sharing my TLM journey. So when I embarked on the TLM journey, I was the principal of the school barely for 1 year. So when I went to the school,
I studied the culture, I look at the way the teachers teach, and I thought what would be the most pressing thing that I need to look at. I thought it was teaching and learning. But I want to share that it's really quite difficult to try and implement new things, especially you are just there for 1 year. The teachers haven't trusted you yet. So whenever you want to do new things, it can be seen as you're doing it for your own glory. They don't really know what is your purpose. So trust needs to be earned over time. So I couldn't rush that. So, but right from the beginning, I was very clear that as a principal, I really believe in leading from inside out. I believe to be honest, sincere, and transparent. And I want to lead who I am, because that would give me joy. I don't want to pretend to be somebody and then another person when I go home. I think it would be very difficult for me. So for me, I always tell my teachers that you can always question my purpose. You can ask me the purpose of my actions or even for what I say. So when I want to do innovation in curriculum, I have to be very clear about my purpose. And I always know that that purpose is not for the sake of innovation. It must be for the teachers and the students. I think the most importantly to me is for the students. But the students will not receive the impact unless I can reach out to the teachers first. So that's why I think I have to look at people, both the teachers and the students. So at the end of my first year, I actually went to design my own model for teaching and learning. I call it POET, Teachers Teaching Effectively. And I was very excited. You know, I went to the management meeting and I presented to them. But I was quite stunned when it was just rejected by them, and they were saying that, you know, why do we need to do this new thing? So I was quite taken aback, but I knew that I shouldn't push it through. So I held back, and I thought that maybe I can look at it in a more, work on it like smaller groups, you know, look at smaller groups. So I then, sorry, let me use this, okay. And wait and see how I could move on. So I was really very happy when in around February 2006, the MOE actually launched Teach Less, Learn More. Yeah, and they invited the schools to apply for it. Yeah, so I was very happy, and I then sat down with my vice principal, and we actually put up a paper and we applied for this TLM, and we were selected, and we were one of the first 8 schools to be the prototype. So we know that if we get into this prototype, we will have more support from MOE. Yeah. So when we were selected, we thought that the teachers somehow were also a bit happy. So there seems a little more buy-in there. Yeah. So leading teachers in this kind of innovation, we really have to look at how we can lead strategically. Yeah. So I have to ensure that the key actions of my school strategic plans are really aligned with the innovation that I want to do. Yeah. So it should not be something which is ad hoc, done randomly, you know, or according to what I thought should be, because that will cause the staff to respond negatively. But I put it into the big picture, get them to see the initiative and go deeper, spend more time, you know, with the staff, and also at the same time not overwhelm the teachers with many, many initiatives. So you have to pick the battle that you want to fight. So like what our MOE always tells schools, that is a buffet spread. You know, you don't need to do everything. You pick what you want to do and is necessary. Because if you try to do everything, the teachers will be overwhelmed. It's just like eating everything. It will cause you indigestion. Yeah. So picking the TLM initiative also aligned with our guiding principle that every teacher is an innovative and collaborative leader. It's not easy because the questions the teachers ask me are very good questions. Questions like, what do you mean by innovative curriculum? Can you tell us what does innovative teaching and learning look like? Because at that time, we were not really into innovation in teaching and learning. You know? So they ask questions like, do I need to be innovative if I already know how to teach and I can give you the results that the students are learning? You know? So they also ask questions like, does innovative lessons mean that students are having fun? And then they may not learn at the end of the lesson. Honestly, I don't have answers to all the questions at that time, but I did assure them that we will work together and give them, of course, some examples. So this is a pictorial representation of Tampines Primary School's direction at that time. So when we embark on the TLM, we have to make sure that it aligns. You can see that the guiding principles and what are the outcomes that we want, how our teaching learning will really enrich our students beyond limits, and at the same time love them beyond measure and bring them to be students who are self-motivated, self-disciplined, healthy, happy, caring, confident, creative, and adaptable, meaning reaching your student outcome. So that pedagogy must help us to arrive at our direction. And in order to do that, it must be something which is pervasive, consistently done, constantly done in class, and it must be the kind of culture that we want in the classroom and how the teachers teach. So it is important also to have a very compelling vision that resonates with every teacher's purpose to teach. So we came with the TLM vision, and the MOE also came up with this, where we talk about effective teaching, engaged learning is for every single child and is carried out by every teacher and in every classroom. So the teachers will ask all these questions. You know, what is TLM? That's the dialogue that we have with the teachers. We have to discuss with them, we have to share and deepen their understanding on the project that we want to work on. So questions like, does it mean teachers teach less, students learn more? How does it look like? More work for students, less work for teachers? What is the teacher's role then? What is effective teaching? What is engaged learning? So all these are very important questions, and we have to have that dialogue and with the teachers. And dialogues on the innovation, the curriculum, teaching and learning must be ongoing. It cannot just happen at the beginning of our journey. So it has to be ongoing, and we have to keep hearing the teachers, keep fine-tuning, and keep working on it. Now, this is the kind of TLM landscape that we want. We want to constantly ask, why do we teach? The purpose is very important. And then it gives meaning to learning to the students. Of course, I think the teachers are very familiar with what we teach. Now, how we teach is an important question we ask, because we do not want to drill and teach the same way every day. We're still for 20 years. Okay. And the other very important aspect is, how do we engage the minds and touch the hearts of the students? So we innovated this POITEL, meaning practices of effective teaching and engaged learning, is a rubric that helps to guide the teachers to see how they can move up to be experts in teaching and learning. Because initially, there was no kind of standards that the teachers can follow. So when I share with them how teaching should be like, it's kind of, there's a big gap between their expectation and my expectation. So this will help to bridge their expectation. So first we want to look at learning outcomes, meaning why we teach. Just now I talked about what, the content, and the process, how. And in terms of engaging hearts and minds, we are looking at the intellectual and the social climate in the classroom. Yeah. So how is this POITEL to be used? It is a guide for the teachers to help them in their daily lesson planning and also execution. And it should be a tool for them to really evaluate the quality of their own teaching and learning, and also a frame for their professional development. Yeah. So what is our approach? So we have a two-pronged approach. The first one is the pervasive practice, where every teacher is involved, okay, in either a learning circle or lesson study. Now, teachers are provided time to participate in this. So I introduced this collaborative structure even before MOE came up with the professional learning team. I carve up time for them, a structure, because I believe that collaborative structures are important to bring the teachers together to come and learn and build on their existing strength. Now, I chose this collaborative structure because I noticed that the culture of the school, one strong culture, is that there is cohesion and the teachers care for one another. So that's a great thing, you know. And when there's cohesion and when they care for one another, and I build on this strength and get the collaborative structure going, it's easier. And you find that it just kickstart and the teachers are happy to work with one another. So I don't want to work on weaknesses. I rather work on strengths. And I think yes, last night Professor Joshi talked about that as well. Work on the strengths, because once you work on the strengths, in fact, I see that the shortcomings gradually become less and less, and sometimes they are even reduced significantly over time. Yeah. So alongside with this pervasive practice, I also have this deep research. This is the research. This research is did not involve all the teachers, whereas the pervasive practice involve all the teachers. The deep research only involved a core group, right? Mainly 3 TLM activists, English, Math, Science, and Drama, and another researcher, my vice principal plus myself. So we want to determine the impact of deliberate planning and the application of POITEL by the teachers on how students' engagement in learning across the different subjects and levels would be like. Yeah. It's a great thing to embark on this prototype, because by embarking on this prototype, actually I receive a lot of support from our Ministry of Education. So generally at that time, you know, schools did not have lots of expertise. So at that time, we did not have like senior teachers, lead teachers, master teachers like what we have now, you know. So, so we don't have the experts to come in to help us. But by participating in this prototype, MOE provided the experts. They have the curriculum partners from the curriculum planning, the specialists who visit our schools constantly, discuss about activities, visit our classrooms, and look on the project that we are working. They even provided us this Professor Colin Marsh, the late Professor Colin Marsh from Curtin University, to work with us on this research. So it was really good, and they guided us along the way. And they also provided training for our research activists and also help us with the TLM activist model. The other great thing is that because I innovated this activist model, I needed more teachers. And MOE was very kind and very generous. They actually gave me a better teacher-student ratio for me. So I receive about maybe 3 or 4 teachers above the quota, and that was really a great help. So let me move on to this part about building teacher leadership. Now I want to go back a little bit to my journey, because I've moved on. I thought it's important how to share with you how I developed the teachers. Early on, I talked about lesson study. Lesson study was not in the school when I went in. There was no collaborative structure for learning. And at that point in time, the school also, those time, still working on how to develop mission vision. Do not really have a did not have a school-wide pedagogy. Most of the strategies were quite frontal, procedural, and of course, there are some teachers who are more innovative than others. So I thought one key way is how to get the teachers to learn quickly, and like I mentioned, leverage on the culture of collaboration there. So I actually attended a lesson study, a lesson study conducted by MOE, and I was really, really excited about it. So I came back and I shared with the teachers. I said, anybody want to join me to start this lesson study? Everybody was very apprehensive because they're not used to opening their classroom to like 5 people to come and observe your lessons, and at the end of it, these 5 people will critique your lessons. It's very threatening to them. The classroom is their private space. So I have no choice, but anyway, I love teaching. So I told them, okay, let me do the first one. And I started by role modeling. And I think it's a good thing also that I invited one of the teachers to join me. And I said, why not you team teach with me? We can do the lessons together. We can do the lessons together. And I conducted the lessons with them. And the teachers I structured the way the feedback should be given. We talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, and how we could improve the lessons, and we modified the lessons, and we conducted a second lesson, and then we critique again, So it was very well received by the teachers. And they shared this very positive feedback about this first lesson study. Now, it is important that when you want to do such a project, that make sure that it is successful. If it's not successful, it is very difficult for you to do the damage control. So it was really a great thing. And in fact, initially the teachers were doing learning circles. After they heard about this lesson study, all of them chose to do lesson study and not learning circle. And so we did away with learning circles. And leverage on the collaborative culture. And then now I think the teachers are more ready. So I got some teachers to do demo, peer, they love team teaching. And I got the HODs. Gradually, I grow the HODs to see how they can lead these lesson studies. And then it started to grow, and the teachers also get to observe the TLM activities, the peer teaching, the peer lesson observation. Now, because of the success of this lesson study, we actually killed several birds with one stone. So I also knew that there were quite a lot of gaps in some of the teaching methods in the different academic departments. So when they work on the lesson study, they were also looking at what were the weaknesses in their department and work it through the lesson studies. And from this mini research that they had done, actually, they also improved the pedagogy, the department pedagogy for the whole school. So it is a school-wide kind of approach, and it was really very useful. And the teachers were very encouraged because they went on to share, and in fact, we sent our teachers to Hong Kong, to Japan, to Sweden, later on, to share their lesson study projects. So it was a great encouragement, and you can see that the spirit of the staff were actually lifted up. They were so proud of themselves and what they were doing. So I was very happy with this journey that we took. Now, the next one that I want to share is some of the positive outcomes of this project, curriculum innovation that we were doing, because the pointout that we did helps to nurture a certain kind of professional culture. And the common language that we use is really useful. Everybody understood that. And the teachers were also given time to reflect, discuss, and share about their practices. And there was a lot of learning, okay, from one another. So now they were not so afraid. The fear about opening their classroom to others was really gone. Yeah. So the other one that we discover, some learning points we discover, is that the teachers, they are all at different points of the journey. So, we also have movement of staff. Some just joined your school, some left your school, some are more senior. So you have to really guide them along, and at different points, what kind of staff development structure that you have in place along the way. For those teachers who just joined you, we call them the beginning teachers. Teachers who are more experienced, teachers who have been with you for 5 to 10 years. So you have to map out your development and training plan. And the best way to help them to understand what pointout is actually to get them involved in all the pointout-based lesson observation and debrief. We also collected lots of videos for the teachers to view, and some of them, they videoed their own lessons, and they self-critique and they reflect on improvements to make on their lessons. I even had one teacher who was so game, invited even the parents to observe her lesson, and she even got the students to critique her lesson. And we had one day, every week we had one day where we actually opened our classroom to the parents. We invited the parents to come in and observe the teachers. I think it was on a Tuesday morning, the first 1 hour of the day. So parents came, and some parents even joined in, to support the teachers. We give talks to the students, for these lessons. So it's something small, but it becomes something that the teachers enjoy, have fun, and find meaning. And the students definitely then will impact. I think that is what curriculum innovation for teaching and learning should be. Now, we also help teachers to think about their own journey, to increase the self-awareness, their journey in growing to be more competent teachers. So we give them this tool called the stages of concern to evaluate for self-evaluation. Now, having said that, another strategic move that we took was that we align our staff performance management to these pointout rubrics. Of course, our Ministry of Education gave us a guideline on how ranking should be done, how staff performance management should be done. But they also gave us free play in terms of what exactly that you want to look at. For example, you know, like how do you look into the students' emotional well-being? So that talk about the social climate that you're talking about. Yeah. So this is an example of a Poitel rubric that we set out the expectations for both intellectual and social climate. Like we say that, how do you provide opportunities to stimulate thinking? Remember the TSLN as well, Thinking School, Learning Nation. You know, I believe that students must be taught explicitly how to think. It should not be, why are you not thinking? Can't you think? We should give them tools to help them how to think. So how do teachers do that? Okay, that's critical. The other one is the social emotional climate. We believe a lot in collaboration. How do you provide opportunities for students to learn from one another, to create knowledge together? So finally, I think 6 to 7 years later, it's not something that we could do overnight. So we published a handbook on Poitel. Yeah. So this is the content of the Poitel, and this is how the book looked like, the handbook. We really celebrated when finally we could get this book out. I want to conclude this last part of my sharing to show how curriculum innovation should also benefit teachers other than the students' learning. I give you examples of these are my 4 activists and how they have moved on. The first one that you see, Shu Fen, she was actually a level head for science. She's now a master teacher for primary science, and she also did her PhD. And the other one who did her PhD is Donna, who moved on from level head English and is now lecturing at NIE. And Darren also did his PhD about education and motivation and engagement in English language. He has moved on from a teacher to be a lead teacher. I hope to see him to be a master teacher. And Nazreen, the lady at the top there, yeah, she was a teacher and she's now also a lead teacher, and she has done her master degree in drama and education, and she aspires to be a master teacher as well. Yeah. So I will pause here. Yeah, I will pause here for a short while before I move on to sharing about innovation in my second school. So, not sure if you have any questions. Maybe we can have some questions. Can I change screen or something?
Yeah, I think it's the right place to take some questions.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we'll take 2 questions per head, and I think we'll take 1 question from Singapore too, because we have some from Singapore as well. And go ahead and raise your hands. Whoever wants to raise, we'll take first come first.
I can't hear what happened.
So, Lok Khatri ji has a question. So go ahead, speak.
Yeah. Good evening from Nepal. And what were the major challenges that you faced when you try to execute your thought, and how did you try to mitigate them?
Okay. So Ms. Wong, did you got the question? Yeah. We can't hear you, Ms. Wong. You are on mute, I think. Oh. No, we good. You're good. We can hear you now.
Disconnected. Ready to air.
We can hear you. Yeah. So the question is, what were the challenges and how you mitigated them? No, your volume is not up. Are you on mute? No, you're not on mute.
The host can do it.
You are good. You are good now, I think. No, no, we can't hear you. Yeah, put your volume up. I think your volume is low. Not right, Sid? No,
Yes, Ellen.
we can't hear you. Sorry about the technology. Yeah.
No. TLLM. TLLM. It is less learning.
Can you mute yourself once and then come back again? And then unmute? No, we can't hear you.
Not all.
Now let's try again. No, we can't hear you. You are fine, but let's see the volume, or maybe microphone. No. Do you want to quickly log out and log back in? Sometimes that happens. So sorry, guys. Give me a second. So we know distant learning is not that easy. We are learning in COVID, so. We have, I thought she was in, yeah, she's in. So now you should be able to share. Can you say something? We want to test your sound. No,
Nope.
we can't hear you.
I think her computer may be mute.
Is your computer on mute?
Is your,
Not the Zoom, but the computer could be mute.
Yeah, maybe function 1 key, F1 key.
It was working fine.
okay,
good
it's
now.
working now.
It's good.
See, we can fix problem from here.
This is my nightmare.
Yeah. So the question was, what were the challenges and how you mitigated it? And we'll take one more question from, you want to take one more question from Philippines before you answer both, or you want to do separate?
What is the first question? What is the challenge?
Yeah, what were the challenges and how you mitigated them?
Okay, I mentioned about in fact, along the way, I mentioned quite a few challenges and how I had overcome them. You know, I think one of the key things is really to, the challenge is to, I talk about earning the trust. Yeah, because you are very new and people are really thinking what is the motive and all that. So you have to think of different ways to, one key way I talk about would be like, I mentioned role modeling, working with the teachers when it was so difficult, you know, I was really on the ground, really working with the teachers on the projects and work very hard with them, and they see that you are there, you are leading by example. You do not just point your finger and ask them to do this and do that. And in fact, before I get them to do, I actually experimented it so that I knew the challenges, and when I can preempt them and I can prepare them for the challenges and advise them not to do this or to do that. Basically because it was easier for me because I was a head of department for mathematics and I love teaching, and I enjoyed working on this innovation with the teachers. So that's one way that I thought that being with the teachers, being in action, leading by role modeling is one of the ways that I overcome the challenges. And I think when the teachers see that you are also working very hard with them, you don't leave them alone, exactly, you empathize with them, actually you find that they will warm towards you, trust is built more easily, things get going, people draw closer to you and people are with you. I think that is one of the first step for me, I think, to overcome the challenge. Yeah. What's the next question?
Next question we'll take from Joanna Puja. Please go ahead, and then we'll follow your rules and we'll come back. I'll gather all the questions for the end. We got quite a few questions on chat. Go ahead, Ms. Puja.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Ma'am Bin-Eng Wong, for sharing. My question actually is something like this. Much has been said about teachers and their contribution to the success of the school where they are working. They have to be innovative, they have to be collaborative and effective and all that. Now my question is, how do you really hire or select teachers? I asked this question because when we were in Singapore several years ago, one of the speakers in the seminar mentioned about how you select teachers. But of course, I could not remember so well. But what I remember is that there are stages or phases, 1 to 5 or A to E, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am. I would also like to compare. That's why I'm asking, because I wonder if we can apply, sorry for being bold, if we can adopt your manner of selection of teachers here in the Philippines. And in addition, I read also in in one of the readings for day 1, I read there that teachers are evaluated not only on their academic performance, but also on the contribution that they have in the character development and the performance of their students. Another thing which I read is that they're also rated on how they were able to help their colleagues and the community and the parents, something like that. So can you please give us more ideas on how do you select teachers, your system of hiring and selection of teachers? Thank you.
Okay. First, I think in the public school, we don't have the autonomy to hire teachers. I think if you remember what Professor Gobinathan talked about, the teachers are all trained from NIE, and then they're sent to the schools. So we do have some teachers who come in as not trained. So we join the school, they have a stint about a year, then they go to NIE and they're posted back. So we actually do not hire for public schools. Private schools maybe, yeah. But we now have this system where the teachers can apply for transfer. For example, if I have a vacancy for a head of department post, I can put up for the open posting. So the HODs from different parts of Singapore, if they want to come to my school, they can apply. So I have that selection. So if I have vacancy, only I select. So I will interview them. I will talk to them based on my judgment of their experience. For me, the most important thing is the character of the teacher. Yeah. And then I look at the leadership, because I think character is something which is rather hard for you actually to change. Yeah. Whether that person will bring positive influence. I think that is critical. Yeah. So I will talk to them, I'll listen to their experience. Sometimes I may even call the previous school principal and ask them to give a recommendation, and ask them to, some of them are my friends, you know, so I can ask them who is this person, you know, do you think it's advisable, you know? Yeah. So these are some of the things that we do, because sometimes you may not make the right judgment. And once the teacher is in, it's very hard to get the teacher out. Because in our system, we do not fire the teachers that way for the public school. I can talk a little bit more about the performance management. So for my school, in terms of performance management, I look at my strategic trust, because I believe that every teacher must contribute to help me to realize the school vision. So one of the key things I talk about would be your classroom teaching and learning. So in terms of classroom teaching and learning, getting the results is only but part of it. The other parts, like the positive classroom culture, the social-emotional climate, how do you stimulate thinking? So we have, in one criteria, like classroom teaching and learning, we have all the different parts. So I give points for all the different areas. Then contribution to the school, to your department, to the school co-curricular activities, how you partner with parents are also very important. So you map out the rubric, and I gave it to the teachers at the start of every year. Before I do that, I will give them the criteria. It's very open. They know what they are being assessed for. And we have a performance management, like for example, at the start of the year, every reporting officer must meet the job holder at the start to set the goals. Yeah, and then they can keep track. And then quarterly, they will meet up with the teachers. They will talk about it and say, how is the performance, where are the areas that you can move on, and what can you do. So we will do that with the teachers, and then when it comes to ranking, we will use that rubric. So it's not a secret how they are being assessed. It's very open. I gave my rubric to all the teachers, and every year I will start by briefing them. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Let's move on, because we'll take other questions at the end. We have lots of questions came in chat, all good questions, and I'll compile them for you at the end.
Okay, I'll share screen now. I hope it won't happen again. I panic.
No,
Sorry. Share screen now.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. I'm here. Okay. Now I move on to I'm sharing. I was touching on all these areas and how about my leadership in leading innovation in the second school. The second school is this St. Andrew's Junior School. All right. Belinda and I, we were from the same village. Belinda will be sharing with you tomorrow. Actually, Belinda was principal of the junior college as well as Dayton as the secondary school. I was in the primary school. So it's like as mentioned, it's a mission school, a great school to be in. So making lives, making hearts to serve the coming days is our mission statement. Yeah. I feel that it's very compelling. Yeah. Okay, give me a minute. Huh? Okay. So in St. Andrews, we have, when I went to the school, it was very different from Tampines, because in Tampines, I really had to start from scratch. But in St. Andrews, I needn't, because I think 7 years have moved on. Schools will have moved on also. Teachers were also more competent, you know, after all the training and all that. So I could use more of the ground up approach. And my predecessor has started something, the innovation on the 21st century competency. So I will use the word CC, 21st CC. So I had to carry on, and I want to look at it. So I studied what they have done. I cannot just carry on without knowing what was happening. And so I want to share with you this journey. So the first thing that I had to do was really looking at it and have conversations with the staff. So in innovation for curriculum and teaching and learning, it is not so much about how innovative or how creative or how different is that teaching and learning or that curriculum, but rather how effective is it? How does it impact the students' learning and engaging the students' heart and mind? So that is the basis of it. I think the purpose is very, very important. So I got the teachers to look at the purpose as well. Now, for the two leadership approaches that I use in both schools, you find that they are actually different. Sometimes it doesn't mean that the first one that I took was not good. Certain culture, certain environment required you to do that. Like the first school, I had no choice. I really had to start from top down because it wasn't easy to get the ground up response at that time. Yeah. But here in St. Andrews, it was already, and there were a few activists that I could work with them. So I started also to involve the stakeholders, the parents, the alumni, the board of governors. I think they are also very important people that you have to work with. Yeah. So we then have to really look at before that, in terms of how we want to really implement these A's. Okay, I will explain A's later on. Sorry, I forgot. Yeah, about that. So the implementation, how are we going to do it even better? One of the key things, the gaps that I found was that I needed to deepen the understanding on what A's was really about. And the other thing I noticed was that, of course, it just started, so I can understand that, it wasn't that pervasive, and there wasn't this consistent teaching practices using this ACE model. Yeah. So the conversation was important, and then the implementation of it. So while we implemented it, we also talk about how do we get the students to think. So one of the key things that we did was really getting the teachers to be trained using making thinking visible routines. These are the thinking protocols. So I had to collapse a lot of my staff meetings, training sessions, so that I would not overwhelm the teachers with a lot of time for this training. And every single teacher was trained how to use making thinking visible routines, online training by Harvard Graduate School of Education. And every teacher was given a book on making thinking visible routine, plus the skillful teacher. And we had meetings and talks. By that time, all Singapore schools have this, what we call the professional learning team. So time is allocated. Every week, they get to meet once a week, and then conversations go on. We talk about this ACE project, and it become a whole school approach. And then we then design flagship programs such as Mini-Lit, Math for Life, and Science, inquiry-based learning. And of course, along the way, then you would have to do a lot of review, and then the journey continues, yeah. Now, some other challenges that we face during the journey is that the school actually need a more systematic approach so that it can be more pervasive and consistent. Of course, there were teachers who, wow, another initiative, so many initiatives. So you will have to look at all the initiatives that you have, and then some of it you probably really have to throw it away if it doesn't help you to achieve your school vision mission, because sometimes really doing more is not good. If you are focused with less and you know how to go about it, actually it could be more effective in terms of helping you to reach your achieve your mission and realize a vision. Yeah. The other part was that the ownership by the students was not strong. Yeah. And there was also, actually we have great parental support in St. Andrews. And I felt that it wasn't fully tapped and that we could reach out more to the parents and get them to come on board to support us. Okay. So I mentioned how this was formulated. Now, I forgot to tell you that St. Andrews Junior School and the secondary school, we are a boys' school, all boys' school. It's not easy, all boys' school, if you're not used to teaching all boys. So we then came up with these A's because we needed to have pedagogy, method of teaching that are more boy-friendly strategies. So all the teachers read this book and then they discussed about the strategies. This was done before me. And of course, our focus was also on character education. This is critical because to us, the bedrock of education is character education. In fact, we always tell them that the first most important thing is character education. The second most important thing is still character education. And the third most important thing is still character education. The boys know it, that character education is so critical. And of course, we talk about holistic thinkers, the intellectual character is also very important. Now, every teacher is also trained. This is our school-wide training, cooperative training, and making thinking visible routines. I mentioned this. So training is one thing, but if they don't try it, they don't implement it, it will not happen. So the consistent monitoring, discussion must be there. Yeah. So let me explain what is this innovation. These ACE principles in teaching and learning. It actually stands for authentic, customized, embedded values. So we look at the pedagogy, we look at the curriculum, and of course we look at the assessment. Okay. Now, in terms of authentic, this is one of the boy-friendly strategies. We want to make it connected to the real world situations and experiences. And of course, authentic, we require them to use the making thinking visible routines. What is an example of a making thinking visible routine is like, what makes you say that? So sometimes they make certain mistakes. We will ask them, what makes you do that? So you get them to think really. Yeah. And our content must be meaningful and relevant as well. Okay. And we want to customize the content, the process. And the next one is really the character education. So I will talk more about how to get the students to own their learning as well. So we use these cooperative learning strategies in all the classes. And we look at how we integrate our school true and wise values. We have 8 values in the entire village. Okay. This is our social emotional learning competencies and our national education values. And I will be talking more about this SAINS protocol. This is the learning disposition. So I believe that this whole thing is critical in teaching and learning in our St. Andrews. Yeah. So let me share a little bit about how this is integrated into our 3 key strategic thrusts. Okay. So all the departments, okay, it took me at least 2 years to work with the head of departments to look at their content pedagogy assessment, in all the departments to integrate this ACE approach. Then they had to work on it. They work on it for a long time, okay, to come up with their department pedagogy because it's quite complex. Now you will notice that as I share, the complexity of the innovation in St. Andrews is of a higher level than what we did in Tampines, because that was the tool for teaching and learning. This is really the curriculum innovation. Then, of course, the character development, when we talk about the embedded values that I mentioned just now. Yeah. The third one, there were many platforms for teachers to develop this best practices. Yeah, because our trust is about embracing innovation and developing best practices that will benefit the students. This is a very useful model. I designed it. I use it in Tampines as well, and I use it for training for teachers, especially teachers who have not gone to NIE for training. And it's a guide for them to think about their lesson in this way. That, you know, you start your assessment right from the beginning. We call it a formative assessment, and it's ongoing. How you check for understanding, you know, it need not, assessment need not have to be written all the time, okay? Look at the content and the pedagogy. So one of the key things is how you frame the learning. So we look at, when we did this, we also use the Skillful Teacher book and look at it, and we actually map out, spell out in detail how this should be done. This is just a frame. And there's lots of details that go into it. Actually, a lot of things I show you are just big strokes and big pictures. Behind it, there was a lot of work done in terms of details, in terms of structures and processes. The whole lesson development, we have to look at the one that I mentioned just now, the department-specific pedagogy, plus how they look at the intellectual and the moral character. Okay, in terms of intellectual character, there must be clarity. How you create the mental engagement, how do you get into the student's head? And how is the classroom management environment? What are the learning dispositions in the classroom? And the last one, which is very important, you can use ICT throughout your lessons. Yeah, so this is something that I will carry on to elaborate more about the use of ICT. In terms of the use of ICT, you know, technology is not useful if it is not based on pedagogy. Yeah. If you just use technology for the sake of technology, it is not useful. Here, I'm also not offering a solution to see how you can use technology, because I'm sure that every country is different. You know, you can see how you can adapt it, but what I would like to encourage is that do not be restricted by what you do not have. Okay. I know some countries, some places that you may not have, not all your students have internet access, and you have some of the challenges. We also have some of the challenges, but we will have to work and overcome it. Just persevere in what you believe and work on it, and I'm sure you can overcome it. Yeah. So I want to reiterate again that the technological change, it must go hand in hand with your pedagogical requirements. If not, your change is then quite meaningless, because it will not achieve your outcome. When I talk about the computer lessons, I'm talking about one-to-one computing. Now, what do I mean by one-to-one computing? Meaning that every student has a laptop in the classroom, and they use the laptop for learning in the classroom. It looks quite straightforward, like just provide a laptop for the students, but it's not. It's very, very complex. We had quite a lot of challenges, and we really had to overcome the various challenges. Now, it is quite a difficult task to implement it at that time. Long ago already. Yeah, but why do I choose to implement it? I love what Henry Ford had said. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Okay, sometimes it will be more of the same thing. It may not solve your problem. You really, for innovation, you really have to think out of the box and see what is it that you can do. So let me share with you, yeah, my journey. Now, when I first look at it, I was thinking, should I carry on? Because when I went to the school actually had started computing for top 2 classes only. That means they only started with 2 classes in primary 3. We don't try with primary 1 and 2 because we think that they are a little bit too young for that. Because they can't even carry the laptop properly. So we started with primary 3, only 2 classes, only 2 top classes. But of course, at that time, some people were asking why only the top 2 classes and why not the other classes. So when I came over, there were teachers who said, let's do away with it. Let's not carry on with this one-to-one computing. Now, every time when I hear the teachers, I do hear them, but I also want to find out more for myself before I make that decision, whether to carry on or not to carry on. Yeah. So I actually observe the lessons. I went to the classrooms. I look at the ways teachers teach. And I saw that actually teachers who were using the laptop, the students were using the laptop, the teachers they were teaching quite differently. And I thought that could be a good way, to change the way teachers teach. So I went to interview the boys. I asked them, I said, now boys, what about not having computer for learning next year? Wow, the whole class shouted, no! we want to have this one-to-one computing. You'll be so boring, the boys. So I also did surveys. I also spoke to the teachers. And in fact, one teacher came to me and said that, Mrs. Wong, if you are going to implement one-to-one computing next year, I want to be on board. When I was invited during the previous principal time, I rejected it, but I regretted for that 1 year because I saw how other students enjoy their learning more. And I felt very guilty that I did not take it on. So I want to try this one-to-one computing. I was very encouraged by what this teacher had said. So after talking to the teachers, I thought, well, I know it was quite a new thing at that time and not easy to do, but I still took up the challenge to implement it. So we look at how other schools had done the one-to-one computing, meaning for the whole school. When I talk about it, it's like not 2 classes, but a few levels. Like we are trying to do it from primary 3 to primary 6, but not at one go, okay? Step by step. So I was on a rugby trip to Perth with my students. So I took the opportunity to visit 5 top Australian schools and ask them questions and find out more about how they did it. I also sent the 2 key person, the HOD for ICT, another one for teaching and learning to some Melbourne schools to learn about it. We also went to, I think locally in Singapore, American international schools, some other local public schools. We also went to have a TWA, that means teacher work attachment to Promethean, at the time was interactive whiteboard. We went to learn from others. Now, the planning is the difficult part. So we form a think tank team, a group of teachers that were quite good at it because I'm really not very good at ICT, but my strength is in pedagogy. So we work together and together we map out plans and the implementation plans, lots of work. In fact, it took us months to work on these things. Teacher training, and we move on to teacher training. Teacher training is very important. So usually we do like a planning for deployment, who will teach the classes next year, like almost in like October, you know, or September. But when I wanted to embark on this, I actually did my deployment early June, so that the teachers were selected to do the whole level, primary 3, one-to-one computing. They were prepared, they were trained, and then they started to plan on how they could deliver the curriculum by integrating ICT. Yeah, so that was how we started. Yeah. Of course, financial support is important. We needed some funding for the second network. The second network is important because we need to have more firewalls, and we do not want it to the boys to access all the, you know, undesirable websites easily in school. We also set ground rules, like you cannot bring your laptop out of the classroom, it cannot be at the canteen, it cannot be at the field, you know, it can be anywhere in the school except in the classroom. We also set up a service center where all the whenever the boys have issues with the laptops, they can go to these service centers. There are technicians there who will help to look into it, repair for them, and help them. Because the teachers are not able to do all these things. So we need to support the teachers and cut down some of these difficult things. And of course, I went to my board of governors. They are always so supportive, yeah, and had some funding there. Yeah. We also had stakeholder support. I met with parents. We did survey, we gathered data, and parents shared with parents about the direction that we are going to take. Parents were generally very supportive. And of course, yeah, we have to show them our plans, have to be clear about our teaching strategies and all that. Yeah. Sorry, I just want to touch a little bit about meeting with parents. When we met the parents asked questions about how about students with special needs. I think the last 2 days I heard some participants ask about students with special needs. In our Singapore school, we have learning behavior educators who support us, and we call them the LBS. They have plans on how the students they can use ICT in their learning as well, and how they can go into the classroom and support these students. And in fact, we also show them research that shows that actually the students with special needs are more engaged. They learn even more effectively when they were given all the ICT tools. Yeah, so the parents were actually very supportive. Yeah, so we had no issue actually. So this is our ICT journey. Yeah, we started before I started in 2011. So all that was done in 2009. So 2011, we look at it as a systemic review. Yes, and we look at all this envisioning. I'll share with you more about the envisioning, word attachment and all that. In 2012, these are the things that we did, especially the ICT policy, and then how we had the whole level of P3 classes. And because these top two were actually the students from here, they move on. Then we move on to increase to the next level. And then by 2016, in fact, all the P3 to P6s were involved in this one-to-one computing. So it's not a big bang, but it's a journey. Yeah. This is our St. Andrews education model. We design it, and we know that whatever we do, the innovation must help us to achieve. So you can see that we talk about intellectual moral character. Later on, I'll talk about all this character development area and how ICT can be used to develop the holistic thinker, especially the skilled communicator as well, and also the community builder. The character education part is really the bedrock, how they can be one of exemplary character. Yeah. I want to share this with you about how we created the ICT vision. Yeah. I'm very happy how it came about because when we had this exercise and dialogue, you know, before I had this envisioning with the teachers, I actually had the dialogue with the management level, the ESCO level. You know, I prepared this dialogue with the teachers. I do not just go in and get the teachers just to talk. You know, the questions asked, how they lead in the discussions, the facilitators were specially selected, ask the good questions, how to give the positive input, you know, to get the teachers buy-in. Because if you fail to do this, it's very hard for your innovation to take off. So this was quite well done. In fact, the facilitators were very good. They were able to win over the teachers' heart. And I know that this session must succeed. Huh? Yeah. And it was so good that at the end of the session, the teachers came up with this. It was not from me. It was from the teachers. I love it. Huh? They had this dream. They said that one day, you know, our school will have a rich ICT environment. Learning takes place anytime, anywhere. Vision, huh? Yeah. Evidence of ICT lifestyle leads to an ICT culture. How our teachers will be confident users of ICT, effective in pedagogy, collaborative learners, delivering positive pupil learning outcomes, and how our students will engage in one-to-one computing, have discerning mind, responsible thinking, self-directed learners who work collaboratively and think interdependently. It was awesome to me. I was overwhelmed with joy, you know, when the teachers came up with this. And it was so good that after this session, when I asked for volunteers, I said that how many of you will volunteer, you know, to move forward with our one-to-one computing. I don't need many, you know. I said I just need about maybe 10 to 12 teachers. I was so encouraged to see that 40 teachers actually came to me and volunteered to teach these one-to-one computing classes. Now I'm moving on to talk about building teacher leadership and competencies in conducting these effective and engaging one-to-one computing lessons. Yeah. So this is how our strategy, how we equip the teachers. We had professional learning teams that I mentioned is a weekly kind, where we get them to talk about all these areas, especially the innovation in orange, when I mentioned about integrating the ACE and the MTV. And then constantly they share their level meetings and sharing. We also get them to come together to plan the lessons fortnightly, especially those who are involved in one-to-one computing. They will plan the lessons, how they integrate ICT. We get the teachers to share, to inspire one another. We also had lesson demonstrations, peer observations, especially when all the teachers are also involved here in lesson study. There must be a structure in place to see how you monitor, how you encourage, how you grow the teachers. Okay. So we had this structure where we have the year heads, assistant year head. But in every level, we have all the champions. You can see that we have an ICT driver and champion. And all the academic drivers and champions will have to see how it was being done, how the ICT, how the one-to-one computing is being built into the pedagogy, the department pedagogy, as that was already done and set up. Yeah. In fact, even my HOD for physical education tried using iPad. Yeah. To get the students, you know, to move from stations to stations, to how to do certain exercises, and the children also actually enjoy it. Teacher training was really detailed. We have to look at all these areas, yeah, even tools, flipped classroom, OneNote, department pedagogy, very, very detailed training. I have no time to go into that. And I give you an example, you know, simple things like how do you begin a lesson? What is the lesson protocol? What should the students do, you know, when the teacher is talking? Should they be looking at the laptop? They ask them how to close their computer in one finger, you know, how do you retrieve the laptops? Yeah, all these were even like using extension cord and the routines, all the details were all very, very critical, because you really have to train the teachers as if they've not done it before. Yeah. And then we have this question on the frequency. Yeah. How often should you use it? Because it's just not possible, realistically it's not possible to use one-to-one computing from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. It's just not possible, because there are also times when you need to do other work that do not require the use of computer. We recognize that. So that's something that the teachers discuss, and we say that, okay, in this case, we will have at least 50% of the lessons using one-to-one computing. Yeah, around that percentage. And we have both evaluative and non-evaluative lessons. Lesson observation once a year for ICT-based lesson, that is the one that we will look at. Assessment. And the other one, which is not evaluation, we have more peer observation, buddy system, the weekly support, the monitoring, the progress, you know, walking into their classroom and enjoying their lessons. So these are things that we go to the classroom to encourage them and not to find out mistakes, really to encourage them. So whenever I go into the classrooms, and if I see anything good, I will share it at the staff meeting and highlight names of teachers, what they have done well. The positive part, not the negative part. Okay. Let me move on to partnering with parents, because it's critical to partner them in this journey. So every year in September, I would meet the primary 3 teachers, because that would be the year that they start to use the computers in the classroom, and I would have to share with them how it would happen, what would their role be, you know, and their fears about how students will do the wrong things with their computer, you know. So we will have to allay their fears, work with them, and teach them what they could do. So we connect with them, we partner them, we talk about all these things, pedagogy, learning. Yeah, these are the types of devices to be used. And also cyber wellness. So we talk to the parents. Now, one thing we learned was, a good thing that we learned from the Australian school was to have this ICT policy handbook. It was really very useful. We gave our parents, every parent, a copy of this ICT handbook. The expectations were all spelled out. Tips on cyber wellness, care for self, care for equipment, were all spelled out for the parents. So we had training for the parents as well. We had training on cyber wellness, some ITC skills as well, and the Web 2.0 tools as well. Now, I'm going to move on to this part about the students. Remember, I talked about the students, and that I believe that all innovations ultimately must benefit the students. Yeah. We want to see how our students can become responsible, self-directed learners who are thinkers, as well as the exemplary character. Yeah. So what are the challenges? Yes, we do have challenges. Yeah. One of them, of course, is that cyber wellness issues, cyberbullying, but it's not often, yeah. So of course, sometimes the students may access undesirable content or website, and the strategy to use to overcome this challenge for me is really the consistent, intentional character education. Student well-being is important, and we actually help them via the cyber wellness education, especially teaching them how to respect for themselves as well as others, how they must be the responsible and safe users of the internet. They have to take care of themselves as well. Assembly talks were conducted. We shared with them, you know, if you don't use ICT properly, you can become a slave rather than a master of the tool, right? So you have to learn how to use it, and you are the one in control. and do not allow the ICT to control your lives. So this is an example of a cyber wellness program. This is a table, but in it comes a lot of lesson, curriculum, plans, and all that. How these lessons are conducted. What do we do, right, to help the students? Yeah. I would like to share with you about our values education, because to me that is really the bedrock of our education. Like we teach our true and wise values very explicitly and intentionally. In fact, we have rubric for every value, and every value actually comes with Bible verse, because ours is a mission school, and then we spell out in detail from primary 1 to 6. What does it mean? What behavior do you show if you leave the value of integrity? We always tell them, you do the right thing even when no one is watching. And that's very important, because you are with the computer, you're at home, nobody is with you all the time, but you then have to do the right thing even when no one is watching. Values like self-discipline, yeah, okay, how they take responsibility for their own emotions and behavior, how they lead themselves well first before they can lead others. Yeah. This is a model that I mentioned. It was used in Tampines as well. It's a model that I created together with Professor Colin Marsh, because we believe in a complementary responsibility, how every student, right, is an engaged learner. Every teacher must be an effective teacher as well. We teach the students that it's not just about the teachers teaching them well. They themselves must also exercise responsibility, look at how they can be the engaged learner, and they are also going to be people who can inspire the teachers to teach them too. Yeah. Before I left St. Andrews, I came up with this SAINS protocol, because I wanted the students to really have a guide for them to see how they demonstrate certain learning dispositions. So I call it the SAINS protocol. Yeah. And in it, you can see the different values there. Yes. And questions that they ask themselves, how they should learn. So to me, these are important dispositions, and that ultimately they can become one of exemplary character and also a holistic thinker, when they leave all these things. So I actually, after I designed it, I actually discussed with the teachers, modified it. Then the teachers gave input. We did it a few rounds. Then after that, the final round, I told the teachers that, to give that impact, I would personally go to every classroom, class by class. It took me more than 2 months to go to every classroom to share with the students what it means and how they should leave this protocol. And of course, the next question people always ask me is then, how about discipline? What do you do with students if they, access the undesirable websites or content? What do you do with them? I must say that we don't have many. Probably in a year, 3 or less than 5 cases. Yeah, and they're not the very serious kind. Probably it's a primary school. Yeah, and we have this process flow for discipline, for the cyber wellness discipline. But for one-to-one computing, for the use of ICT, you will see there's a red informed principle. So they don't need to go through the flow. They come directly to. I will handle. Sorry, what's happening? I will handle it myself personally. Yeah, and for such issues, you must nip it in the bud. You cannot allow all these negative things to go on. So you will have to really look at it. Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm coming to my last slide. All right. Now I'm talking about the journey for the pandemic and the epidemic thing. Before this epidemic, actually, all schools in Singapore, we have home-based learning. We practice home-based learning at least twice a year. For us, at least twice a year. And we have temperature taking every week. And we also stack whenever we have outbreaks, you know, it's not new because we have outbreaks like more than 10% of students down with influenza flu when I was in Tampines. And then very frequently we have hand, foot, mouth disease. So how do we stagger break time? How do we clean? And we actually had sanitizers installed outside every classroom. Yeah. So when the pandemic comes, it is quite easy for the students because they were on one-to-one computing, you know, was not a challenge. But for the whole of Singapore, we actually standardized to say that for the older children, the home-based learning, the HBL is only like 4 hours and fewer for the younger ones. And of course, the younger ones, you need more preparation. The thing they need to learn is how to use Zoom initially. It was a simple thing to overcome because the students learn it faster than us. Yeah. And we had support from the parents. And the good thing is that when the schools were closed, the parents were also at home because they have to work from home. So the support was there. And of course, we have students who do not have internet access, do not have the device. So what do? We actually allow the students to come to school and there were teachers there to supervise them. Yeah. And we help them as well. Even for our one-to-one computing, we also provided computers to lend to them, and we also have financial assistance schemes for them. Yeah. So I think I've exceeded the time. I hope this is now Q&A. So I will stop share screen now. Yes.
Thank you very much, Siang. We have lots of questions, and you know, you set a record today to do 67 slides in less than 2 hours. So that's a new record. Okay. And having said that, I'll move on right to the questions before I take any hands up or anything. We have lots of questions came online, and Ms. Charles and Prasad were very kind to answer a number of questions, but some of them are left for us to answer here. So I'll go over 2 or 3 questions that didn't get answered in the chat group. One of them is, why is innovation in, because someone heard that you saying, why innovation in teaching pedagogy is not acceptable to MOE? Did you,
no.
Was it not acceptable to MOE?
No, MOE supported our innovation. Yeah, okay. I did not say that. Yeah, in fact, they were very happy. Yeah, because they do encourage us to innovate. Yes. Yeah.
And there's another question came out from Roderick De Leon. Is you talked about lots of different models, TLLM, Poitel, ACE, integration of ICT, etc. But do you follow certain principles or theories in formulating the said models?
So the principles, the main principle is that what is the purpose for the innovation? Yeah. So I have a few things that I follow. The first question I ask is, what is the purpose for the innovation? Because the purpose must be very clear. It must be for the students, benefit the students, and of course, then the teachers, you must know that in terms of the readiness of the teachers, and it will benefit the teachers and the teachers, because the teachers are the ones who are going to carry out the innovation. If you don't have buy-in from the teachers, you have a big issue. So when the teachers are for it, you get the buy-in, like all the innovations I mentioned, but it takes time. You may not get the buy-in immediately. So I shared with you the different leadership styles that I use to get the buy-in to work with the teachers. Yeah. So these are, and the other thing, the purpose is important that I mentioned also, that you have to look at your school direction. So the innovation should not be an ad hoc thing. You are doing it because it should be one of your strategic thrusts to help you to attain your vision and mission. And teachers must be very clear. Yeah. So these are the few things. The other thing is that when you implement it, there must be constant dialogue, monitoring, and working with the teachers, because things will go wrong. And do not allow the things to go wrong and you don't address it, because it will become so difficult that you find that your innovation will fail. Yeah. So it is important that along the way you monitor, you review, you get the teachers to talk, you work on it. You must, for me, I personally feel that you can't leave these duties to your heads. As a principal, you have to be on the ground. You have to know what is happening and what are the actions. You must make decisions of what are the actions that you need to take. You can get the people to work on it, but you must have the knowledge of what is happening and how you are going to lead the people to overcome this. Yeah.
So there was a follow-up question to the same one I asked, just came out, saying that do they have to, I'll ask two questions and you can combine them maybe. Do the higher officials in the ministry, do they have to approve all these different programs? That's the number one. And then the number two question is, how do you motivate your teachers for innovation?
Okay. Firstly, we don't need approval. Yeah. In fact, MOE is very encouraging. They would want us to look at how we innovate. But one thing that we are all mindful, they do not want schools to keep innovating and overwhelm the teachers. That's something which we have to look into the well-being of the teachers. Yeah. As long as the innovation is for a good cause, your purpose is very clear, I think it's fine. Yeah. How do I motivate the teachers? If you listen to my story, I think there are many strategies I use. Like I said that in the first school, if you have that passion, I feel that one key thing for me, I find that my teachers tell me is that my passion for teaching and learning somehow rub off to them. So when they can see you so interested, so passionate about it, I think it's easier to motivate them. And you are working along with them and they see you so interested, you know, and you are very affirming. So when you see them doing something good, like I mentioned, that you celebrate with them and you get the teachers to celebrate with one another, share with one another. So it's always good to share the positive part of it. So like we always have when we had the lesson study, we have lesson study sharing every term. Yeah. And and when you share all the success stories, they actually see that, hey, it can be done. If my colleague can do it, so can I, you know. So that is the kind of, I motivate mainly about this method. Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Please unmute yourself.
I think we are 20 minutes above the time, but I'll take a few more questions. There is a question came out. It was in two parts, but I can combine them. Are there subordinates to support you in planning different teaching models, monitoring them, supervising them, or you do by yourself as a principal? We covered it, but I'll just leave it there. Yeah.
Okay, let me say that in my first school, it was very difficult. Yeah. A lot of things because it was just starting. So, but I knew that you can't do it alone. So I started to grow. In the first school, I started to bring my HODs with me, you know, and coach them and get them to, by the second year, first year, actually, I had to role model, I had to do a lot of things on my own in the first school. Then second year, actually, I got all the heads to follow me, you know, I coached them, I guided them, and then I asked them to take over. And by third year, they were all leading already. So I can't do it. It's not possible. It's not pervasive. If you are the only person do it, it will collapse the minute you left. Yeah. So okay. It must be a system that starts. So in St. Andrews, I already have the structure there. Is also easier for me to get the people to designate and then to grow more leaders. Yeah.
And there's a next question. I think I was going to ask the same question probably, but there's a question that about innovation. Do you implement this innovative idea as a pilot test? Or if it's a pilot, then how long? Or you just go for a big implementation for the whole school?
I don't do a pilot test in a small class in the first school. I did it in stages. That means with a small group, then the group get larger, and when the positive talks and more positive messages got around, and more teachers come on board, you see that how it multiplies. It takes because I'm telling you a story, it looks like it happened suddenly, but it's not. It happened over a period of, in the first school, it happened over a period of 6 to 7 years. Yeah, the same for the second school. Yeah, so you will have to give that time for it to happen.
So let's do like I'll open it for next 6 minutes for Q&A. So if anyone has a question, please raise your hands unless you are typing it here. So if you want to ask question directly, I'll leave it open for 6 minutes. So that it will be exactly 30 minutes over the time, and I'll stop there. Anyone has question, you raise it. I know it's very late in Philippines and Singapore especially, but and it's very hard. You saw like 67 slides to go through in less than 2 hours is not a joke, and that proves that how good she is as a teacher and principal.
I try my best.
I don't see any hands raised, and I haven't seen any new question. Okay, I saw one. Mauricio, so can you unmute yourself and go ahead? Oh, we saw several, okay. Mauricio?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Miss Ma'am Wong. So you had an experience leading 2 different schools, one private and one public, am I right?
Both are actually,
are?
one is government aided, it's not actually
government aided. Okay.
Aided,
so
yes,
it's
it's actually public.
Okay.
But it's mission school, yes.
Okay. So we do different settings. What are the behavior of teachers when it comes to appreciating the innovations you introduced? Are they different? Do they receive the innovation differently? And what are your mechanisms to explain to them the importance of these innovations?
Okay, I see there's not much of a difference in how they receive the innovation because the innovation was done together with them. So, and they know the purpose of the innovation. So it's not an innovation done by me. So if it's done by me, then it will be different. But it's an innovation that I started with them, worked together with them. I showed them the purpose and how it aligns with the school direction. So it becomes part of the school direction to move forward. So it was not an issue at all. Yeah.
Okay, so collaboration is important part of
yes,
innovation.
Yeah, I'll take 2 more questions. So there is Santosh
Okay, thanks
Acharya.
so much.
Santoshi, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Bin-Eng, well, we are very much happy to hear your good practices, and it is very encouraging and motivating for us, and we are just learning these leadership skills, and you have covered almost lots of areas needed for school leaders, and I think your sharing needs a whole week. But only I want to know, because in this pandemic situation, we also need some kind of parents guideline book, as you have also prepared during your computer one child one computer program. How do you prepare that, and how was its impact of that parental guideline book?
Okay, I'm not sure what's the impact because I've left the school when this pandemic happened. Yeah. But I believe that when the students are already on one-to-one computing, when it happened in the classroom, when it comes to translate what they have learned in the home-based learning is not an issue. Let me share with you some of the things that teachers shared with me. For example, when they have these home-based learning at home, the students are at home, you know. So in the middle of the lesson, the students are waving their hands frantically at the teacher, trying to get the teacher's attention. So the teacher thought, what was happening? Asked the boy, what is it that you want? And the boy said, can I go to the toilet? I'm very urgent. So it shows that they still see that home-based learning like a classroom. Yeah. And the engagement in terms of monitoring of assessment, there are certain tools that you can use. And so I would see that they are actually better prepared. In fact, my daughter actually was at home looking at how her own children was going through this home-based learning. She said that when she was looking at it, she really saluted the teachers. The teachers were amazing. In fact, the teachers worked very hard to prepare all these home-based learnings. And she said, after this, I really salute the teachers. Yeah, so it's not an easy task. It's really an uphill task for the teachers actually to learn in a short time, how to. And the other very key thing is that the teachers also know that now their classrooms are open. The parents are there looking at how you teach, how you conduct your lessons via Zoom. Yeah.
So we'll take a last question for tonight. I know we can keep going for a whole day, but we got to stop somewhere. Every good thing has to come to an end. So this will be the last question by Lakshman Dattaji. So Lakshman Datta, can you unmute yourself and go ahead?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Suman, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you so much, Bin-Eng Wong, ma'am, for your very insightful and fruitful delivery. And we are very glad to hear that about your successful journey as a school leader. And here you presented the TLLM model, teach less and learn more model. Really, it's very interesting. This is the first time I heard this. And I would like to ask about how do you implement this in the classroom? Do the teachers prepare daily lesson plan to implement this, or how do teachers practice in the real classroom this TLLM? I would like to know this one. And one more question is regarding teachers' professional development. Does Ministry of Education provide professional trainings or development trainings, or school organizes teachers professional development trainings? Regarding professional trainings, does school itself organizes, or any line agencies do? This is my
answer your second question first.
Yes,
the training, we have some core training that every teacher has to go through. So they can take their time and they can go. And for training for different stages, like teachers who have just joined teaching, teachers who have been there longer, teachers who are going to take on leadership role. So we have different stages of training. We also have training for teachers who are going to take on the role as senior teachers, as lead teachers. So there are whole lots of training done by the Ministry of Education. The teachers can select and attend. On our part, our school, like we customize, we do some of the own training. Sometimes we invite trainers, sometimes we do it ourselves, because we don't want to overwhelm the teachers with training. Because training is one thing, but believing in it, practicing it is another thing. So I'm usually very careful in terms of what kind of training I would want to carry out for the teachers. Because if it is not useful, it's actually a waste of time. The teachers will feel that, and they will dislike training. So we as school leaders, when we design our own training program, we have to look at it. The other thing is that when the schools choose the training, you have to look at your overall training plan. You must map out what kind of training plan you want for your school, so that the training will help your teachers to carry out whatever that are set in your direction. For example, the TLRL. So we have training for making thinking visible routine. That's one compulsory training. Every teacher will have to go through. Yeah. So you map that out, and that will be easier. Okay. So that's the question about training. The other question about TLM, like I mentioned, we have the TLM landscape. We also have lessons to show how you can, lesson studies to show, and we have videos to guide the teachers to see how you can conduct such lessons. It's more lessons where you are effective in engaging the students. Yeah, so it's not a, TLM, for me, my innovation was not a specific pedagogy, was a rubric on how the teachers can use it as a guide to help themselves to be the effective teacher. Yeah. So that was that TLM. So in that model, you can see what are the things that you need to do to stimulate thinking, to create that social emotional climate, to teach effectively. What that will come under our various department pedagogy. Every department has the method of teaching. So we work with the heads of departments. It took them years, and they keep on modifying to improve it. I hope you answer your question. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think, as I said, everything good thing has to come to end. It's time for the group picture. And thank you, Ms. Eng. And like it shows why Singapore education is where it is, with dedicated principal and teachers, educators like you and many others. And I think everyone is very appreciative of your email. You didn't have to, your presentation, you didn't have time to look at the chat. There's so many compliments. I'm not going to go through them. And thanks for everyone to giving that compliment, and hope you can utilize some of those skills to whatever schools you are in. And having said that, Roshan, are we ready for the picture? And I will again not insist less but more that I need your reviews, your evaluation, and please, I will leave the to yesterday's one open by until end of the day tonight, your night time in Nepal, and then I will open up for today. And so tomorrow when you wake up, you can do for today's. And because these ratings, these evaluations are very important for us. You are a teacher and principals, you know the importance of evaluation. So thank you very much. Are we ready for the picture, Roshan? Let's go.
I became super efficient today and I already took the picture. So we are good.
You're good? Okay.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
So good night, and tomorrow we'll meet at the same time, the same place, and we have more exciting sessions coming up for next 2 days. Thank you very much. And just want to remind you, the Friday one may go a little longer, so be prepared for it. But I don't feel guilty asking that for the Friday, because you're not going out on Fridays on this pandemic time, and you'll be home. And so let's take advantage of Friday. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Thank you.